From the station working for you, this is WRTV News at 11, streaming now.
They're fighting COVID-19 and working to keep Hoosiers healthy. And tonight, Central Indiana's biggest healthcare systems are also taking steps to eliminate racism as a public health crisis.
And the leaders of Eskenazi Health, Community Health Network, and Indiana University Health have signed off on a pledge to promote healthcare equity in all the communities they serve. This is the next step after doctors, nurses, medical students, and other healthcare workers held a march over the summer in solidarity with racial justice protests. WRTV's Cornelius Hawker talked to a doctor who says this is a step in the right direction.
Dr. Ashley Meager was one of the hundreds of people who took part in the White Coats for Black Lives rally march in June. Medical professionals vowing to do their part to tear down systemic racism.
All of the systemic racism that's been built into the medical system for years, for decades, really affects our patients on a day-to-day basis, and it affects their lives.
That's why Dr. Meager is happy to hear 3 of Central Indiana's biggest healthcare systems pledge to address racism in healthcare.
It is crucial that health systems recognize and deliberately institute anti-racist policies to start breaking away at those decades of disparities.
To see the disparities in healthcare, you only need to look at the communities hardest hit by the pandemic. State health department data shows Black people make up a larger portion of COVID-19 deaths compared to a percentage of Indiana's population. So how does systemic racism play a role in this? African Americans tend to distrust doctors because of past unethical treatment. Think the Tuskegee study where African American men were lied to about getting treatment for syphilis. It lasted for 40 years. That, along with other issues like a lack of access to medical centers or affordable healthy food, has led to health problems like diabetes and high blood pressure. All things that increase the chances of dying from COVID-19, all things that can be traced back to systemic racism. So where do we go from here? That's the question I posed to Dr. Meager, and she says the change starts one patient at a time.
Physicians are on the forefront of kind of breaking down some of this and providing healthcare for a patient rather than a whole group of people as a kind of monolithic block.
Working for you, Cornelius Hawker, WRTV.
And included in the plan laid out by IU Health, Eskenazi Health, and Community Health Network is a commitment to finding ways to reduce healthcare disparities and to make sure their leadership teams reflect the demographics of the communities they serve. You can check out the full pledge and plan at WRTV.com.
Is progress being made when it comes to the relationship between IMPD and the community? Well, we took that question to 2 groups today, Faith in Indiana and Indy 10 Black Lives Matter. Both have been fighting for racial justice and reform for years, well before this summer's demonstrations and protests. Faith in Indiana supported the push to create a new IMPD General Orders Board that will be made up of 4 civilians and 3 law enforcement officers. Leaders with both organizations say that's a good step forward, but the entire system needs improvements.
What are the people of faith saying needs to be done? So we've done a work around police reform. We're also doing work around rehabilitation instead of incarceration, continuing to do work as it pertains to making sure that we are ensuring that gun reform is happening.
I think, of course, that there are community members who may be in support of policing or their understanding of what policing is, but it needs work. We understand that the police don't live in our communities, that they simply come into the communities to surveil, capture, and incarcerate. And so we are seeking reform in some instances, but ultimately an overall defunding and abolition of that entity.
We also reached out to IMPD Chief Randall Taylor. He released a statement saying, in part, quote, "Over the last several years, as this city has invested millions in community-based efforts to improve the health and safety of our neighborhoods, IMPD has remained focused on building bridges of trust and with residents and developing the kind of police neighborhood partnerships that reduced violence," end quote.
And as COVID-19 continues to make the school year a challenge, parents are getting creative to make sure their kids are still learning if they cannot be in the classroom. WRTV's Cameron Riddle shows us the resources available for families as this school year evolves.
My kids go to school every other day in person, and on the alternate days, they were at home, kind of goofing off.
Between the challenge of doing her own job and monitoring her kids' virtual schoolwork, Tiffany Tabb is taking advantage of extra help through community learning sites powered by the Mind Trust, which offers e-learning support, a safe place, and meals to all students in grades K through 12. Tabb says she gets why her daughters can only be in school part-time, but says keeping them at home 3 days a week is not ideal.
That's not what I want for them, and that's not really what's best for them. That's not ideal. They really need to be somewhere where there's some structure and where there's appropriate supervision.
Since mid-August, the Mind Trust has been running 15 learning sites across Indianapolis 5 days a week, with 325 students attending from just about every school district. Now, as more schools reopen their physical classrooms, 3 of those locations are extending their services until the end of the semester. You'll find Pam Leeper at the Reset Center location on the east side. She says parents are eager to sign their kids up.
It's just too stressful to, again, if they're at home or if they have to leave the kids at home. Either way, it just concerns them.
The learning site locations are strategically mapped across the city, with Christa Morehouse serving the west side, the Shepherd Community Center on the near east side, and the Reset Center on the far east side. The e-learning support, meals, and supervision are all 100% free. Patrick Jones with the Mind Trust says this is their way of supporting families in a difficult year.
You still don't feel comfortable and safe to send your kids to school. You can send them in a safe and sterilized place where they can come and learn and get cared for in a place that you can feel comfortable with.
Cameron Riddle, WRTV.
And the learning sites are able to continue thanks to $88,000 of investment from the city and the Mind Trust. The organization says they now have the space to serve 100 students in socially distanced settings.
New COVID-19 cases and the percentage of positive cases in Indiana continue to trend in the wrong direction. According to the State Department of Health, 2,880 positive cases were reported between Saturday and yesterday. The 7-day positivity rate among unique individuals is 12.9%, and 1,515 COVID patients are in the hospital as of yesterday.
Vice President Mike Pence is in central Indiana at this hour. He arrived in Indianapolis at around 6:30 this evening after holding an event in Fort Wayne. The Vice President and Second Lady Karen Pence plan to cast their votes here tomorrow, which they rescheduled from earlier this month. The Pences are not the only Hoosiers casting their ballots before Election Day. According to the Secretary of State's office, more than 1 million people in Indiana have requested an absentee ballot or voted early so far. That's more than the entire early voting period for the 2016 election, when around 977,000 votes were cast in person and by mail. The Secretary of State says the increased number of absentee ballots means final results may not be in on election night. You can volunteer as an absentee ballot counter by contacting your county clerk's office as soon as possible.
WRTV is working to get answers for people who are still waiting for their ballots to arrive in the mail. Teresa Setka says, according to the voter portal, her ballot was mailed on September 19th. Christian Johnson, who requested an absentee ballot because he's working in Canada, is still waiting as well. Both say they're especially anxious to vote this year.
I mean, it's frustrating, right? Because it's an important election.
This is the biggest election of my life, and I'm serious about it. And I hope other people are too and do their best.
The Marion County Clerk's Office tells us a batch of ballots mailed out around September 19th have not arrived yet or are just getting to voters. Setka decided not to wait and voted early in person, but that's not an option for everyone.
I want to be able to vote, and I feel like it's my duty. Not everyone can vote, and like those who can should. It's frustrating in that aspect, especially being out of the country. It's not like I can just, I couldn't vote absentee, so I'm just going to go vote in person.
If you requested an absentee ballot but have not received it yet, you can fill out an ABS 5 form to request a new one.
And if you need help getting to the polls, IndyGo is offering free rides on Election Day. All IndyGo fixed route and open door service will be fare free on November 3rd from the start of service until 10 p.m. Officials say IndyGo is honored and proud to do their part to reduce voting barriers and support the community in exercising their right to vote. And the final presidential debate before Election Day just wrapped up. ABC's Marcy Gonzalez is in Nashville with a recap and reaction.
President Donald Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden facing off for their second and final debate. 90 minutes focused on 6 main topics. The first, the coronavirus pandemic, which has killed more than 220,000 Americans.
We have a vaccine that's coming. It's ready. It's going to be announced within weeks.
Is that a guarantee?
No, it's not a guarantee, but it will be by the end of the year.
This is the same fellow who told you this is going to end by Easter last time. This is the same fellow who told you that, don't worry, we're going to end this by the summer. He has no clear plan.
The candidates then moving to more personal attacks.
You were getting a lot of money from Russia. They were paying you a lot of money, and they probably still are.
I have not taken a penny from any foreign source ever in my life. We learned that this president paid 50 times the tax in China, has a secret bank account with China, does business in China, and in fact is talking about me taking money.
His son didn't have a job for a long time. As soon as he became vice president, Burisma, not the best reputation in the world. I hear they paid him $183,000 a month.
No basis for that. Everybody investigated that. No one said anything he did was wrong in Ukraine.
This debate a contrast to the last, with contentious but far less chaotic exchanges.
We have to provide health insurance for people at an affordable rate, and that's what I do.
He was now there as vice president for 8 years, and it's not like it was 25 years ago. It was 3 3/4. It was just a little while ago, right? Less than 4 years ago. He didn't do anything. He didn't do it. He wants socialized medicine.
Thinks he's running against somebody else. This is the guy who's tried to cut Medicare.
And now with the debate behind them, it is the sprint to the finish line. President Trump pledging to hold multiple rallies every day between now and November 3rd. He'll travel to Florida tomorrow, where former President Barack Obama will be this weekend, stumping for his former VP. Marcy Gonzalez, ABC News, Nashville.
81 degrees today, but a big change is on the way. The transition will take place with thunderstorms. We'll talk about the timing.
The changes created new burdens for renters to have to meet and created some holes in the protections that those renters need.
Coming up, new eviction guidelines you need to know if you're worried about making the rent.
And while it might not have felt like it today, winter weather is coming, but that won't stop kids and families from taking a swim on the east side.
From the station working for you, this is WRTV News at 11, streaming now.
You had to feel it if you went outside today. It was warm enough to swim out there today, but even when it gets cold, going for a dip will still be an option in Indianapolis. Today, city and community leaders unveiled upgrades to the Indy Island Aquatic Center at Raymond Park on the east side. The changes include a new 101-foot long water slide, a waterfall, and bright LED lighting throughout the pool deck.
The winter months are tough enough as it is. For families on the east side of our city, Indy Island provides a place for healthy recreation regardless of the weather. And I'd like to take a run at the new park slide myself. But fortunately for all of you and your listeners and your viewers, I didn't bring a swimsuit today.
Maybe next time. In addition to the recreational area, Indy Island also offers swim, kayak, and scuba classes, as well as other water safety and fitness programs for kids and adults. Looks like fun, Kevin.
Yeah, it would have been a lot more spontaneous, too, if the mayor would have just hopped in all dressed. You can do that. 67, that's our current temperature. You realize 63 is the average high. Temperatures that were in the 80s have only cooled into the low 70s. For example, in Muncie, 69 in Bloomington, where you hit 85 degrees today. Temperatures tomorrow, they won't be as warm, but still will be in the mid-70s. We're between weather systems right now, but not for long. High pressure to the southeast, low pressure, and the colder air to the northwest. The door will open late afternoon tomorrow, and the wind direction will change. Thunderstorms, we may have some showers in the morning, but the thunderstorms are most likely in this 2 to 7 o'clock window. The risk for severe weather is marginal. It's a low risk with falling afternoon temperatures, especially starting in western and northwestern portions of the state. Notice the low chance of rain in the morning, but it climbs steadily through the day. 1 to about 7, the most likely time for the line of thunderstorms to move through the metro area. It'll be earlier than that, western Indiana, a little later in the eastern portion of the state. Lightning makes every thunderstorm dangerous, but it doesn't make it technically severe. Damaging wind is the main threat from the thunderstorms tomorrow, and those should be on an isolated basis, not expecting widespread severe weather. Temperatures will cool from an afternoon high in the 70s. Probably 3, 4 o'clock is the high, and look at the steady fall after that. We'll be into the 40s by late evening. 1/4 to 3/4 of an inch of rain expected. Should be fairly widespread. We'll all see something, but this should be scooting along at a pretty good clip, so it shouldn't be excessive in any one spot. When we talk about marginal risk, we're really talking about isolated severe storms during a relatively short time period. That's for the southeastern 2/3 of the state. Look what happens with the winds through the day tomorrow. They start out of the south and then come to the northwest and north, and that will deliver the knockout punch to the very mild air. 53 Saturday, 56 on Sunday. After tomorrow's rain, we're most likely to have widespread rain again on Monday, a high of 53. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, temperatures will be in the 30s for lows. Still have a chance of some showers around during that time period as well. If it happens in the pre-dawn hours, maybe we have a snowflake mixing in and melting with some raindrops. I leave that thought with you, Mark.
There, you said it. All right, thanks, Kevin. The Centers for Disease Control may be rolling back some eviction protections. There have been ups and downs for tenants and property owners since the CDC issued a moratorium last month. Scripps reporter Alicia Nieves reports landlords pushed back within days, filing several lawsuits against the agency.
After being hit with one lawsuit after another, last week the CDC responded to the lawsuits in court, seeking to uphold the eviction moratorium mandate, but outside of court issuing new guidelines that convey a slightly different message.
The changes created new burdens for renters to have to meet, and created some holes in the protections that those renters need.
Diane Yantel is with the National Low Income Housing Coalition, an organization concerned about the new burden renters have to prove their financial distress, but also over this new bit of information released in the guidance.
Landlords can file evictions, and courts can essentially take every step in the eviction process up to actually removing somebody from their home. That has a significant impact and ultimately will mean more low-income people leaving their homes, losing their homes before the moratorium even expires.
As many renters do not want to go through an eviction process and tend to cave to moving out before the court-ordered eviction dates. The National Apartment Association, which attached itself to the lawsuit against the CDC, cautions the new guidelines aren't as big of a victory as they may seem for landlords. They do not put landlords much closer to recovering the estimated $12 to $17 billion outstanding in back rent. Bob Penniger heads the NAA.
I think the guidelines put out by the CDC provide a path forward. I still maintain that the guidelines put out by the CDC are a half step to a solution.
A full step, he believes, would be a solution that helps landlords and tenants. Interestingly enough, advocates on both sides agree on a better solution.
We still need to have a stimulus act that will provide direct rental assistance.
At least $100 billion in emergency rental assistance.
But that is up to Congress, and it is looking less likely that any kind of stimulus package will pass before the election. More likely that a court will rule on whether to uphold the eviction moratorium or not before then. I'm Alicia Nieves reporting.
If you need help paying rent, financial assistance is available. If you live outside of Marion County, go to IndianaHousingNow.org. If you live in Marion County, go to IndyRent.org.
Marion County businesses in the hospitality industry still have time to apply for rent and mortgage assistance through help grants. The deadline is November 6th. Eligible restaurants, bars, and entertainment venues can receive up to $25,000. La Margarita and Fountain Square already applied and received a grant.
I'm so thankful that they got back to us as quickly as they did. We did it really quick and tried to make sure we were at the top of the line and get in and cross your fingers. But I think it's a good thing. I think there's going to be a lot of recipients, I've heard.
Obviously, for bars and restaurants, one of their biggest expenses and most constant expenses is going to be keeping their space in order to stay open. And going into these winter months, it's going to be even more difficult as folks probably aren't going to be going outside as much for outdoor seating. And there still is reduced capacity inside based on the public health order. And so we know these businesses are going to continue to struggle.
In addition to the help grants, the city has budgeted $1 million to reimburse businesses for things like heaters, outdoor seating, canopies, and other winter PPE. We'll be right back after this break.
IndyCar seasons go by fast. It comes to an end this Sunday. Our Brad Brown reports a pair of past champions will be looking to add to their impressive resumes.
If it seems like the two drivers competing for IndyCar's 2020 Series Championship have been here before, you are not mistaken. Scott Dixon and Joseph Newgarden. 4 of the last 5 years, one of that duo has held the Astor Cup when it was all done. They'll battle for it again on Sunday.
He's been consistent throughout his whole career. He's just always there. He's very dependable and very capable in any situation.
Joseph is exceptionally good in all areas, that IndyCar throws at you.
Dixon started the season in dominating fashion. 3 wins in the first 3 races. He built a nearly 150-point lead and looked like a shoo-in for the title. But in these last 4 races, he finished 10th, 9th, and 8th.
For us, we try to typically keep it pretty simple, but I would say that was not the case for the last few races, which got us into a bit of a tailspin. And obviously, Joseph and Tim Penske, him and his teammates have been doing a fantastic job.
As Dixon's results faded, Newgarden made a charge in the stretch run. Wins at Gateway and the Harvest GP at IMS cut the margin to just 32 points for the season finale.
I'm surprised we're here, to be honest. It almost makes it more disappointing looking at the year now that we've clawed back to this point, because we were in such a deficit and there was such a hill, and we've reduced the hill without a doubt, but it's still a mountain to climb.
This marks the 15th straight season that the championship will come down to the final race. But it will be the first time the streets of St. Petersburg host the championship. Originally the season opener in March, it took a massive effort to get this October date on the calendar.
I think how all of us started the season, loading into St. Pete, getting ready to go, and then waking up on Friday and saying that, you probably need to book a flight to go home. So, it's nice to end it in full circle and go back to St. Pete this year.
I think just thankful that we're able to go back and race there this season, and it's going to be, I think, a really fun time in October. It's a different ending for us than we've seen in IndyCar.
IndyCar broke it down for us. Dixon has 1 more win, but 8 top 5s for each driver. Newgarden led the most laps in the series this season. St. Pete itself could be the X factor. Dixon has yet to win there, finishing runner-up 4 times. Newgarden won this race last March. So here's the short version of how Sunday's points battle could play out. If Dixon finishes 9th or better, he's guaranteed the series championship. As for Newgarden, the best case scenario for him is to win pole, lead the most laps, and win the race. Even then, he would still need Dixon to finish outside the top 10 to clinch the title. So will it be back-to-back for Newgarden, or does Dixon win his 6th? We'll be there Sunday in St. Pete to find out. Brad Brown, WRTV Sports.
'75 Friday afternoon, only 53 Saturday. Some drama ahead in the weather world. Amanda?
Thanks for making us your choice for news.